Good afternoon. Buenas tardes. Welcome to Lake Chapala Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. I'm Devorah Kelley, and I am today's service associate, and Reverend Matt Alspaugh will be presenting our message this afternoon. We welcome all of you to this service, especially those of you who may be searching for a spiritual home. May our time together bless us with the gifts of inspiration, comfort, and renewal. May it be so. Our opening words this afternoon are by UU Minister Sherry Woodbury. Whether by habit or out of need, whether in body or through cyberspace, you've entered this sanctuary, there is no separation here of the sacred from the profane. For nothing can be more precious than the ordinary beauty of spring or the stirrings of the human spirit. Let us bring then our holy hearts and our sacred selves into this place of ritual and song. Let us once more commingle the elements of heaven and earth in the shrine of interconnection. Come, let us worship together. So if you're new here and would like more information about our fellowship, who we are, what we believe, you can sign up to receive our weekly newsletter and other emails, or you can check us out at our website at LCUUF.org. Okay. Would members of the welcome team please stand up so we can, okay, Dee Dee. Look at this, we have a plethora of welcomers. And here's a little secret, sorry Michael, I'm going off script. Here's a little secret. Anyone that comes pretty much regularly, you're all welcomers, even if you're not sitting at that table. Okay. So if you've returned or reconnected with us after an absence, please say your name and tell us where you're from. If you're on Zoom, put your information into the chat box and it will be read here in this fellowship. We'll start with people in the room.
Hi, I'm Trudy, and I'm returning after a long absence. I've been on Zoom every week, but it's nice to be back physically.
Woo!
I'm Bill. I'm Jean Haley's son, and I'm here with my partner, Kathleen.
Welcome.
Welcome.
Are there any visitors on Zoom this afternoon?
No.
Okay. So welcome to our visitors and our returnee. Nice to have you here, Trudy. My hand is shaking for some reason. Hold it too. Okay. Here at LCUUF, we offer a wide variety of services on various topics presented by outside guests, some of our members, like me, as well as our minister, Reverend Matt Alspaugh. We hope you will return to sample this variety of thought and belief. Our chalice lighting words. Matt, do you want to light the chalice? Are a blessing of the four elements, because we did have the equinox this past week. So these are words, it's a blessing, and it's written by Eric Williams. May the firmness of the earth be yours. May the flow of water be yours. May the freedom of the air be yours. May all the gifts of this life, the below and the above, be yours. May they be with you now as we light our chalice and remain with you always. Now, having lit our chalice, let's sing these words together.
Kindle this night in celebration for the life that we share.
Okay, this is the time in our service when we can briefly share our personal joys, sorrows, and our milestones. because there's power when we share these in community with each other. Just a sentence or two is enough. We will start with the folks here in the room, giving people on Zoom a chance to type into the chat to be read out loud here. As the mic is passed, please share your sorrows, whatever you may be holding, that is in need of our healing and caring thoughts, and or your joys, whatever you may be celebrating, whatever evokes a feeling of joy, peace, or gladness. Any joys or sorrows here in the room?
Several months now, and in my wanderings I've been to many Unitarian fellowships, and they're all lovely, but I've never ever experienced what I've experienced here. I will be back as soon as I get stuff done in the U.S., but I just want to thank everybody for being so welcoming and for connecting. I've never seen the level of connection that I've seen here, so. And the joy is that I will be back, and I'll have a family to come back to.
See, you're all welcomers. There's one there. Wait a minute.
Okay, sure. Give me the chance, right? I'm Tom. I'm Tom. As an American, I want to again share the joy and the therapeutic message that I'm getting from the Canadian protest songs and the humor and the wit. It's just, it's very encouraging.
Elbows up, Tom.
So it's with some sadness that this is my last Sunday here. I'm going back to Montreal and making common cause with my Mexican home, which is my safe place, and my Canadian home. And thank you for being so welcoming.
Hello, my name is Ellie. Many of you know that dementia is the top of my topics of everything, and we're doing a lot. We've been making a lot of really positive progress with the sharing group, and on April 7th we will have the performance right here, and I hope that many of you will attend that because it's an eye-opener for many of us to see what people with early onset dementia are thinking and experiencing that even their care partners may not know. And I left some of the invitations on the table there. Dealing with it in my own life, I have sadness, sorrows, it's up and downs, it's a roller coaster. But this for me also is the place where I find friendship and support. Thank you all.
Hi, I'm Mark. An appreciation, really, for when I was in the process of putting together the service I presented last week. The support from people in the congregation was phenomenal, particularly Devorah, and even more particularly Jane, who were just with me all the way through it. So I very much appreciate that. And also Bob, who was kind of willing to jump in and take on an acting role. And just a pitch for Bob's trust that he's put together, which I participated in, which was a meeting we held with interested parties a couple of months prior to help kind of turn what I had from an idea into a service. So it was all very, very supportive. And also a regret, which is Gloria and I are leaving on Friday, so we're going back to Winnipeg. Gloria's been still quite ill with a respiratory thing that's been going on for a number of months, so she regrets she can't be here today. And yeah, we're gonna miss this place and these folks. It's a fabulous congregation. Thank you.
I am Val, and Lynn and Gary will be back Tuesday. Yay.
Hi, I know some of you can't make it today to the film that's Io Capitano at City Lago at 2 o'clock, but I wanted to mention that it's a special dedication for those of you who are European, who understand the strains of the humanitarian crisis that's been going on globally and now with the termination of foreign aid. And for those of you who can make it, it's an extremely moving film, but it's dedicated to all of you Europeans here and to everybody you know who can come and wants to understand more about that problem. Yes, at the door. 150 pesos. Oh my God. Did you want to? No. Whoops.
Hello. As most of you know, my name is Roy Haynes, and I haven't been here in a while, but I'm usually with you all every Sunday on Zoom. I have been working on a project since last May, which came to fruition last weekend at the auditorium called Movies and Icons. It was a big dance show, and it exceeded all of our expectations. And we had a blast doing it. And the cherry on the cake, my best friend from 40 years from college got to come down. We hadn't seen each other in over 10 years. Got to come down and see the show, and we got to spend some time with each other. So very grateful that the show was a success, and I hope you'll see me a little bit more.
Miss anyway. Did you have one? Oh, there's one down there.
Hi, I'm still Bill, and I want to share a joy for my mother's life and for the community she's found with you. Thanks.
Michael, are there any joys and sorrows on Zoom?
We have nothing on Zoom today.
Okay. All right. So this care candle that Matt's going to light is from our care team, and we light it to represent all the joys and sorrows that have been spoken and witnessed here today, as well as those that we hold in the silent sanctuary of our heart. So let us share a moment of silence. So I think most of you know that the work of our fellowship within these walls and beyond our walls takes our time, our talents, and it takes our treasure, which means money. So now is the time in our service for our offering. As we pass the baskets, if you're new here today, or if you're struggling to hold things together, let the basket pass you by. Your presence is a gift and is more than enough. Please know that we use a big portion of this money collected. It's given to an organization here at Lakeside. And for March, we're supporting Food Bank Lakeside, an organization that works to relieve chronic food poverty of our most disadvantaged neighbors in numerous villages here. And the description is up on the monitor. May this offering sustain and grow the life and the work of this congregation. It's been given in love, and in hope for a better world, and has been gratefully and graciously received. So our opening hymn is number 203, O Creatures of the Earth and Sky. And I love that this was written by Francis of Assisi. So please stand as you're willing and able, and we've got song leaders coming up front, so sing out. How many people had goosebumps? I turned around, I'm like, where did all these people come from? Thank you, singers. That was amazing. This is what we need.
And I'm also going to say that there was something about it that we were, for me, it felt like we were breaking the rules singing Alleluias during Lent. And some of you guys know what I mean.
Shh, don't tell. Wow, I'm sorry. That was amazing. So this reading is by the poet Denise Levertov. We live our lives of human passions, cruelties, dreams, concepts, crimes, and the exercise of virtue in and beside a world devoid of our preoccupations, free from apprehension, though affected certainly by our actions. A world parallel to our own, though overlapping, and we call it nature, only reluctantly admitting ourselves to be nature too. Whenever we lose track of our own obsessions, our self-concerns, because we drift for a minute, an hour even, of pure, almost pure, response to that insouciant life, cloud, bird, fox, the flow of light, the dancing pilgrimage of water, vast stillness of spellbound ephemerae on a lit window pane, animal voices, mineral hum, wind conversing with rain, ocean with rock, stuttering of fire to coal, then something tethered in us, hobbled like a donkey on its patch of gnawed grass and thistles, breaks free. No one discovers just where we've been when we're caught up again in our own sphere, where we must return, indeed, to evolve our destinies. But we have changed a little.
Wasn't there a meditation in here somewhere? We skipped over it. Well, this is a good place to put it in. Sometimes we just rearrange things on the fly. So I want to just invite you to, and after that poem is kind of maybe a nice thing to ponder. So in that case, why don't we just kind of settle into our chairs, kind of get comfortable. You might try to find that sort of erect but relaxed place in your body. You know, erect so that you're not having to hold up or kind of have tense muscles, but relaxed. You know, feet on the floor and just comfortable there. And just bring your attention to your breath. Maybe other thoughts will come up, of course, but the breath can be a primary place. Just noticing the in-breath and the out-breath. And maybe the no-breath that's in between. Just noticing. And if thoughts come up, notice those too. And if you've been drawn way away by thoughts, just come back. Because that's really the power in meditation, is the coming back. Coming back from the thoughts to the breath or to whatever we're focusing on. So when I mention that I am a minister at a Unitarian Universalist congregation, many people will say, Well, Sunday morning, that's when I go out in nature, and that's my church. And I can't disagree with them. As much as I would like for them to come visit us, I get that there is a great spiritual value in being out in the natural world. Being able to go out into nature is what saved me during COVID. And I still spend a lot of time hiking, usually several days a week. Being in nature gives me time to reflect, to ponder. And my pondering often leads to how we understand the natural world. How does the natural world work? Questions come up. Not merely, what is the name of this plant, which, by the way, I kind of suck at that, but why is this plant here? And why are bunches of them over here and not over there? And how did these rocks end up forming here in this particular place? And what is the history of this forest? Is it a managed monoculture destined for the paper mill? Or is it the remains of a primordial forest cared for by ancient indigenous peoples? And how do all these things, plants, animals, minerals, fit together? Which invariably brings me to Darwin. Now, as we know, Charles Darwin developed our central idea for how life came to exist in all of its various forms. His idea that species change and evolve through a process called natural selection has held up to observation and experiment and is now accepted as the core of the life sciences. Now, there are a few folks that disagree, mostly religious conservatives, and I'm not going to spend any time with them today. I heard that, yes. Instead, I want to ask, what happens when we go too far with a good idea? In particular, what happens when we extend Darwin's ideas to the human world, to sociology? Shortly after Darwin published his work, the philosopher Herbert Spencer extended the ideas of natural selection. And by the way, Spencer invented the term survival of the fittest. He extended them to human economies. He and others argued that survival of the fittest was the foundation of capitalism, especially neoliberal or laissez-faire capitalism. Further on, nature red in tooth and claw became the argument for imperialism, for slavery in the USA, and for eugenics, especially in Nazi Germany. It seems that the work of Darwin has been used to justify the creation of a horrible world, a dark side to Darwin, if you will. And yet, Darwin's own work was much more complicated than this. He noted that natural selection wasn't driven by competition alone. He observed that many species used cooperative and altruistic behavior to survive and thrive. He pointed in particular to ants and bees and other social insects. He also noted that many mammals, such as wolves and primates, cooperate in groups to improve their overall survival. Now, Darwin was a careful observer, and he tried to make sense of all that he saw in the natural world, including things that we find repugnant, such as parasitic wasps that lay eggs inside other insects, with the larvae eating them up alive. These too he attempted to explain with natural selection. And yet, what I have noticed is that only in the last few decades have biologists really begun to take seriously the possibility of cooperation and altruism in these explanations. I think of the work of Suzanne Simard at University of British Columbia, who studies how underground fungus facilitate communication and energy flow and nourishment among trees. She has found that mature trees, she calls them mother trees, send carbon to nearby saplings, and that some of this cooperation even occurs between different species. So when I walk into the forest, I do not feel surrounded by nature red in tooth and claw, even though I realize that that exists. Instead, I feel the hidden embrace of creatures cooperating with one another. Trees with vast underground interconnections, vast varieties of creatures coexisting, even sharing the space that is their home. I reflect on Darwin's own unifying understanding of the natural world, put in his words, I quote, "There is grandeur in this view of life, that from so simple a beginning, endless forms, most beautiful and most wonderful, have been and are being evolved."
So this second reading is from the book, The Serviceberry, Abundance and Reciprocity in the Natural World by Robin Whalley Kimmerer. She describes a report that linguistic Daniel Everett wrote as he was learning from a hunter-gatherer community in the Brazilian rainforest. Here are her words. A hunter had brought home a sizable kill, far too much to be eaten by his family. So the researcher asked how he would store the excess. Smoking and drying technologies were well known, so storing was possible. The hunter was puzzled by the question, store the meat? Well, why would he do that? Instead, he sent out an invitation to a feast, and soon the neighboring families were gathered around his fire until every last morsel was consumed. This seemed like maladaptive behavior to the anthropologist, who asked again, given the uncertainty of meat in the forest, why didn't he store the meat for himself? Which is what the economic system of his home culture would predict. Store my meat? I store my meat in the belly of my brother, replied the hunter.
I store my meat in the belly of my brother. To me, that is the essential summary of this delightful little book, The Serviceberry by Robin Whalley Kimmerer, a professor of environmental biology at SUNY in Syracuse, New York. So Kimmerer starts the book with an exploration of the serviceberry, an obscure berry that she finds in the fields around her home. She speaks of sharing them with the cedar waxwings, the catbirds, bluebirds, and robins. She says, "The abundance of berries feels like a pure gift from the land. I have not earned, paid for, or labored for them. There is no mathematics of worthiness that reckons that I deserve them in any way. And yet, here they are, alongside the sun and the air and the birds and the rain, gathering in the towers of cumulonimbi. You could call them natural resources or ecosystem services, but the robins and I know them as gifts. We both sing gratitude with our mouths full." End quote. So in this book, Kimmerer explores the gift economy as an alternative to the capitalist economy that we are all familiar with. She calls capitalism the scarcity economy, for in that economy we are taught to buy, to accumulate, and hoard against losses or bad times. In the gift economy, on the other hand, a network of sharing and mutuality provides protection, even abundance, especially in hard times. More importantly, this gift economy just feels good. In that brief reading, Kimmerer notes her gratitude for receiving gifts. Later on, she explores the emotions of joy and gratitude a sense of worth that comes from giving gifts, for her, books, to others. So we feel this sense of abundance, even security, when we're able to give some of what we have to others. Kimmerer suggests that we've been trained out of the gift economy by our current scarcity economy. Advertising and social media encourage us to want more, maybe more than we can have. Life's activities are increasingly transactional. We have to purchase them from strangers rather than giving and receiving from friends and neighbors. And yet, she notes, the gift economy reemerges in times of disaster. And that's what happened when Hurricane Helene hit our home in North Carolina. Rather than roving bands of looters predicted by right-wing pundits, there were roving men with chainsaws helping their neighbors clear roads and driveways, while others loaned out their generators so people wouldn't lose the contents of their refrigerators. And when you think about it, our LCUUF congregation survives purely on a gift economy. No one is compelled to pay for any services here. We survive. No, we thrive based on gifts, including pledges that pay our rent, our salaries, and our expenses. We offer nothing transactional, no indulgences, no assurance of heaven even, in exchange for those gifts. We each give as we feel we are able, and we enjoy those feelings of gratitude and connection that arise from our giving. Now, Kimmerer does acknowledge that there are limitations to the gift economy. It has to deal with cheaters and free riders that take and don't give. But the scarcity economy has its own limitations too. We need antitrust laws and environmental protection laws to prevent cheating by who? Large corporations mostly. But maybe there's a middle ground. Kimmerer notes that there's a field called ecological economics, which attempts to model human economics after ecological systems. She says, or she quotes, "The goal of ecological economics is creating an economy that provides for a just and sustainable future in which both human life and non-human life can flourish." And so certainly that is a model that includes some competition, just as the natural world does, but also cooperation, symbiosis, just as the natural world does also. So in the end, such a model would be more balanced than our current economy, with more sharing, more symbiosis, more relationships and interdependence. Gratitude and reciprocity would be at the center of such an economy. In ecological economics, we'd be learning from the natural world rather than trying to dominate it. We'd be living much more in harmony with the natural world.
So our third reading is from an article called "It's Time to Take the Gaia Hypothesis Seriously" by David Grinspoon, a planetary scientist. Organisms and species do not have cosmological lifespans. Gaia does. And this is perhaps a general property of living worlds. Influenced greatly by Lovelock and Margulis, I've argued that we are unlikely to find surface life on a planet that has not severely and flagrantly altered its own atmosphere. According to this idea, a planet cannot be slightly alive any more than a person can, at least not for long. And an aged planet such as Mars, if it's not obviously conspicuously alive like Earth is probably completely dead. A living world's perspective implies that after billions of years, life will either be absent from a planet or, as on Earth, have thoroughly taken over and become an integral part of all global processes. Signs of life will be everywhere. Once life has taken hold of a planet, once it has become a planetary scale entity, a global organism, if you will, it may be very hard to kill.
So scientists have long divided the world into the living and the non-living. The living part, the biosphere, grew and evolved into all its forms on top of the non-living part, which was seen as more or less a blank canvas on which life did its work. But perhaps the living and the non-living parts actually work together as one. That's the idea known as the Gaia hypothesis. It was the creation of brilliant biologist Lynn Margulis and chemist James Lovelock in the 1970s. They wondered if the line dividing the living part of the Earth, the biosphere, from the non-living part, rocks, water, air, if that line was a bit contrived. They wondered if instead the whole planet worked together to support life. They noted that there seemed to be patterns of self-regulation, of homeostasis that tended to keep the planet within constraints that could support life. Things like the global temperature, the oxygen content of the air, the pH of the oceans, all tended to adjust over time to maintain life. So, in essence, the whole planet is alive. As Lovelock put it, compare the Earth to a giant redwood tree. 99% of a redwood is dead, and only the thin outer layer, the bark, is alive. And yet, the tree itself is most certainly alive. So the Gaia hypothesis is a brilliant idea, but it's controversial, and it's hard to prove or disprove. However, astrobiologist David Grinspoon, who we heard the reading, had suggested a Gaia hypothesis that might be testable. His version, which he calls the living worlds hypothesis, suggests that planets in which life gets started adapt to life, and then life becomes abundant. Worlds end up either being full of life or they end up dead. Grinspoon tells us that a planet cannot be slightly alive. As we heard before, an aged planet such as Mars, if it's not obviously, conspicuously alive like Earth, is probably completely dead. So as a scientist, being able to offer a falsifiable hypothesis is a big thing. It changes mere speculation into a testable theory. Exoplanets around other stars would either be fully alive or completely dead. And we may be able to detect the alive ones. And if that is so, then we need to change our thinking. Grinspoon says, when we stop thinking of planets as merely objects or places where living beings may or may not be present, but rather as themselves living or non-living entities, it can color the way we think about the origin of life. Perhaps life is something that happens not on a planet, but to a planet. It is something that a planet becomes. What Gaia means is that we are part of a planet that is truly alive. Ours is a planet that is fundamentally different from other planets. What Gaia means to us as humans is not only that we are part of a web of life, we are part of a larger living organism that is the Earth. When we understand this, we begin to see ourselves differently. As individuals, we know that we will die. And we can take some solace in the fact that, in knowing that we are part of bigger things, families, cultures, even our species. But with the possibility of Gaia, we may be part of something bigger still. As Greenspoon says, if we choose to identify with the biosphere, then we, Gaia, have been here for quite some time, for perhaps 3 billion years, in a universe that seems to be about 13 billion years old. We have been alive for a quarter of all time. That's something. For me, there is comfort in this realization. We can see ourselves as part of Gaia, a particular part that has recently evolved into thinking and observing, understanding, and remembering beings. And even with our intellectual capability, we see ourselves as part of Gaia that still has to grow into wisdom. We see ourselves as part of Gaia, not separate, but sharing in the sustenance and flourishing of all life. May we develop that wisdom. May we become wise, not just for ourselves, for Homo sapiens, but for the earth itself. May we become part of wise earth, Gaia sapiens. May it be so.
So our closing hymn is number 21. For the beauty of the earth, please rise in body or in spirit and join us in singing again.
Let me get some, we're going to do this first? Yeah, I think we are. The observations of the community, this is a little experiment. So the question that I want to ask you to ponder for a moment, and we'll have time maybe for a couple of folks to share briefly. The question is, have you had experiences of learning lessons from the natural world? And then, Devorah, you're going to go around if anybody, and oh, if you're on Zoom, we will, we'll make time, we'll try to open the mic so you can speak to everybody, and just type in chat or raise your hand or do whatever it is you do on Zoom to get our attention, and we'll try to include maybe some folks there. And we've got one in the back to start.
Okay, so the thing I'm going to say has to do with plant spirit medicine. And sometimes a rock, sometimes a flower, sometimes any kind of an offering that we can take in for our own self can also be extended to nature. So when we receive a gift, if we also create a heart's altar and then create some kind of an altar that represents it, we give back to the spirit of the consciousness of Gaia, because we are integrally not only related, we are it, it is us, it is all one. We are all one, body, mind, spirit, and every time we think something, our dogs, our cats, our animals, everything receives it. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Good morning. My name is Greg. I just wanted to share an experience I had with nature. In my youth, I traveled to Peru looking for a lost monastery of the Incas while lost in the Andes Mountains with my backpack in the day, which had metal frames. I was struck by lightning.
Oh.
And I was knocked unconscious. And the lesson that nature taught me, other than the physics of not wearing metal things in places where there's lightning, was about death. And that I was dead, struck by lightning, but I also came back to life as I am here today.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Wow.
So when you're going whitewater canoeing or rafting, you have to look for the V, the way in which the rough waters form a V, and in that V is some calm water, and you can keep going and not be capsized.
Right.
So look for the calm in life.
Let's see if there are anybody on Zoom
Wait,
right
we've
now.
got one
Okay.
more. Ellie?
Okay.
It's very interesting that this topic comes up right now, just after having been to Open Circle, where the presenter talked about intuition and our connection with the universe. And to me, my own experiences, her talk made me very emotional, and I'm thinking, this is exactly what I've experienced. But we don't allow ourselves to connect with universe. We're being influenced by the rest of the world. So I'm learning as I get older, and that was one of the lessons I learned this morning, is that if we listen, well, I consider the universe, the power of the universe, part of nature, right? And how we can let ourselves actually be part of that, and all the answers will come through that. Thank you.
I'd like to follow up on that. I was in Monte Alban, outside Oaxaca, 2 weeks ago with my daughter, and we were on this path with amazing views, and all of a sudden I said to her, stop. And she's like, what? And I said, listen. You couldn't hear anything but the wind, and that doesn't happen very often. I actually took a video of the silence, believe it or not. So it was like, find the calmness, find those places where nature speaks to us without the human voice.
Devorah, please check on the Zoom people now.
Okay.
We are running out
Okay,
of time.
Zoom? Anybody on Zoom, Michael?
Yes, just one. Mike Blanco, to everyone, says, nature teaches us that God is not wholly other, as some suggest, but that God is with us, among us, and is us. Is that it? That's it. That's all.
Thank you, Mike.
One more. Oh, nature teaches me that diversity is the norm. I love this. Terry Rosen.
Thank you, Terry. Is that it? One more?
Maybe Susie, briefly, Susie.
Yes, I said 10 seconds. The topic was intuition, and I would say in my experience is also when you are really quiet and open, nature does communicate telepathically to us, be it water, rocks, air, the cosmos. Be open to it.
Very well. So the natural world has lessons to teach us, as we've just heard, if we pay attention. May we as a species learn these lessons well. May we as a species develop a wisdom suitable for our place in this interconnected world, that we may do our part to encouraging the flourishing of all life in its endless forms, most beautiful and wonderful, that have been or are being evolved. May it be so.
So let us extinguish our chalice with these words which we read together. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we keep in our hearts and share with all the world. Feel free to sing along, right, Michael? Thank you, Michael. Thank you, singers. Our worship is over, but our service begins. So go in peace and with a purpose, and I just want to say, find a place in nature that speaks to you and be with it completely and listen. May it be so.